Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. So the year is already half over and I thought I would share with you all my favorite romance books of 2019 so far. I was looking through my Goodreads shelf. I have a shelf exclusively for my favorite books just to make it easier on me to go and look back and see what I need to narrow down or not, but I actually have quite a few books to share with you all. I haven't narrowed any down. I'll save that for the end of the year if I do like a top 19 or whatever. So these are in no particular order. I love them all except for this first one, which is still my top favorite book of the year. It has yet to be topped, and it is The Bride Test by Helen Hoang. So there are so many reasons to love this book. There's Asian rep, there is autistic rep, the writing is beautiful. It has a trope that's kind of old school romance, which is the mail order bride trope, where in this case the hero's mom kind of matches her son up with a woman she finds in Vietnam. The book is super sweet, it's super Asian, which I loved so much. There's so much talk of Asian food, Asian markets. I myself am a little Vietnamese, and just being able to see the culture was incredibly heartwarming. And I just love this book so much. So definitely a top favorite. If you haven't read it, you should, as well as The Kiss Quotient. If you haven't read The Kiss Quotient either, you should. It's about Kai's cousin. The next book after this one will be about Kai's brother, Quan, and I'm super excited. Probably it's my most anticipated read of 2019. Next up is a set of 3 novellas. It's actually one big book, but it was published in 3 novellas separately, and that is the Laws of Physics series by Reid. So the reading order is motion, space, and then time. These all follow one couple, Mona and Abram. It is a new adult contemporary romance. The heroine is an insanely smart girl. She's basically a mad scientist genius. She is working on her PhD at 19. So Mona has a twin sister who asks Mona to pretend to be her for a little bit so that she can fool Abram, who is supposed to be babysitting Mona's sister, who is in quite a lot of trouble with her parents. Mona and Abram are basically stuck in this house together. Abram doesn't know Mona is not Lisa, and yes, their names are Mona and Lisa. And of course they don't really expect to find a connection together, and they slowly start to fall in love, except that Mona is living a lie and Abram doesn't know. Each book has quite a cliffhanger, so lucky you, you don't have to wait like the rest of us did when it was releasing. If you know me, you know I love Reid. I love her writing, I love her characters. They're intelligent, but they're super awkward and dorky sometimes, which Mona is. Abram is probably Penny's sweetest hero. He's actually a romance reader himself. He loves Lisa Kleypas, and how can you not love a hero who loves Lisa Kleypas? It's such an incredibly written new adult romance series. If you love the genre, I highly recommend it, as well as the first book in the series, which is Elements of Chemistry. So this next book you've probably seen everywhere on Instagram, on YouTube too, and it's for a good reason. It's an incredible book by an amazing, hilarious author, and that is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. So this is a romantic comedy, but don't let this cover fool you. It is steamy as hell. Tessa is known for her dirty talk, and Travis, our hero, is Georgie's older brother's best friend. So if you like that trope, I highly recommend it. There's an element of forbiddenness, but also the history where they already know each other, which is one of my favorite things in a romance. It's fun, it's flirty, it's just a really great summer read overall. So I love this book. It's genuinely hilarious. Tessa knows how to write humor and steam. Be prepared if you haven't ever read her books. If you read it and love it, you will definitely want to read her other books. I'm planning on making a guide to her books sometime soon, so be on the lookout for that. So my next book is not technically a romance, though there is romance in it. and the author does write romance anyway, so I'm keeping this on the list, and that is When We Left Cuba by Cleeton. So this is the standalone sequel to Next Year in Havana, which I have not read, but I'm planning to because this one is absolutely incredible. The writing is gorgeous. It sweeps you away to Cuba, as well as Florida. Our heroine Beatrice is independent, feminist, so strong. She goes after what she wants, no matter what society says. There is a romance. It is quite the forbidden romance. He is an older senator who wants a family, and she's not exactly what he ever envisioned himself being with, especially in his political career. Their romance is very non-traditional, but the star of the show is definitely Beatrice. I loved reading about her adventure, really, during the Cuban Revolution and basically fighting against Fidel Castro and his communist regime. So for my next book, you might already know how much I love this author duo, if you couldn't tell by all the books that I have by them. So it is Tangled Like Us by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book 4 in the Like Us series, which is a spin-off of the Addicted / Calloway series. I highly recommend reading them in order. Yes, including the whole Addicted series, which is 10 books, but it is probably my #1 new adult series written ever. It is very character driven. You will fall in love with this cast of characters. They're so unforgettable. And so the Like Us series is about the second generation. It follows the children of our original 6 and their bodyguards. So the first 3 books follow Maximoff and Pharaoh. It is a romance. Tangled Like Us is about Thane. Tangled Like Us is about Jane and Thatcher. Jane is the eldest Cobalt / Calloway daughter. Their romance was everything I was hoping for. There's a forbidden aspect. They're trying to keep their relationship quiet because if they don't, if they're found out, Thatcher could lose his job as her bodyguard. So the next book on my list is an arranged marriage romance. The bride and groom have never met each other until their wedding day, and it is arranged by R.K. Lilly. Got such a pretty cover too. So Nora and Banks hate each other on first sight. They're not happy about this forced marriage, but they go through it anyway. To say that they have a rocky start to their relationship would be an understatement. After their wedding night, Banks leaves for a month to London and they don't see each other that whole time. Banks is a total jerk. If you love your asshole heroes, you will love him. I love the angst in this book. I love when heroes try to win back the heroine. This book is perfect if you want some fantastic groveling. But yeah, this is probably one of the angstiest books I read this year, and I highly recommend it if you love books that just mess with your emotions and make you love and hate the characters. So this next book on my list is also an arranged marriage trope. I usually read this trope in my historical romances, but the modern ones that I've been reading have been absolutely amazing, and this one is The Kiss Thief by L.J. Shen. This has also got a fantastic age gap. The hero is a total jerk, as L.J. Shen is incredible at writing. There's a slight mafia aspect to this too. The hero is a politician, but he's also trying to dismantle the local gang who is run by his new bride's father. I know the blurb says 1 kiss, 2 men, 3 lives, but this isn't really a love triangle, I promise. Like, you clearly know who the hero is and who Francesca wants to fall in love with, and the romance is written fantastically. I love L.J. Shen's ability to write such great character development, and Wolf and Francesca are definitely one of my favorite couples from her. My next favorite is Kill Switch by Penelope Douglas. If you know me, then you know I read every single Penelope Douglas book and I love them all. Kill Switch is book 3 in her Devil's Night series. It is quite the dark romance, so it's not for the faint of heart. This is Damon's story, the story that most of us have been waiting for. He is the messed up psychotic one in the group, and he falls in love with a blind dancer. His face is actually the last face that she ever sees before she went blind. Winter and Damon have such a star-crossed love, but you can tell how much they belong together. The romance is so intense. I was really excited to see how Penelope Douglas would redeem Damon's character because he does not do good things in the first 2 books. But I'm happy to say that Penelope Douglas did her thing. She's one of those authors that I trust implicitly. So if you love a good anti-hero, you should read Killswitch. Honestly, you should read the whole series, the whole Devil's Night series. Book 1 is Corrupt, book 2 is Hideaway, and then book 3 is Killswitch. If you love Greek mythology and you love erotic romances, you have to read The Rose by Tiffany Reisz. This is such an interesting concept for a story. It's separated by Greek love stories like Andromeda and Perseus, Briseis and Achilles, Eros and Psyche, or Cupid and Psyche, Ariadne and Dionysus. So the premise of the story is that our heroine Leah, she receives this gift from her father, which is this cup, and this man, Augustus Bowman, tells her that it has magical properties, and if you drink from it, you'll have your erotic fantasies coming to life. And since she loves Greek mythology, her Greek mythology fantasies come to sexual life. So for each part, she basically becomes one of these Greek characters and plays out that story with a ton of sex, of course. If you ever need any well-written erotic romances, Tiffany is a must-read. Nalini Singh is one of my all-time favorite authors. She wrote the Side Changeling series, which is probably my favorite paranormal romance series ever. She has her spin-off series, the Side Changeling Trinity series, which follows like a separate arc. And book 3, Wolf Rain, easily made it onto my favorites list. I love being back with the Snow Dancer wolves. Alexei is one of the wolves and he is such an amazing hero. He falls in love with a Sai who has a lot of trauma, a lot of darkness in her past, but being the lovable, romantic, amazing guy that he is, he has her opening her heart to him, and it's something that he treasures. If you haven't read Side Changeling, you have to. I'm obsessed with this series. I had to include another popular book that everyone loved, and that is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. To be honest, I was kind of scared going into this book just because there was so much hype and so many people I knew already loved it, and I'm so glad to say that I also loved it. It wasn't perfect, but it was such a great read. Like, I couldn't put it down once I started. It's a friends to lovers romance. Kristen is the maid of honor and Josh is the best man. They make a pretty terrible first impression when they first meet. They don't know who they are since they've never met, and Kristen accidentally hits his car. But once they do officially meet, they become fast friends. Kristen has infertility issues and Josh wants a big family, so already from the start they know that they're not really meant for each other, even though they have this connection that they've never felt with anyone else. There's also a dog in here who I loved so much. I love that his name is Stuntman Mike. He's like this little terrier. He adds a lot of comic relief to a story that does get quite emotional and sad. The only reason why this wasn't like a full 5-star read, it was closer to like a 4.5, was that I didn't really like the ending, and also Kristen's characterization. Everyone seemed to love her because she wasn't, you know, super girly, and that didn't make sense to me. She was made out to be like a female unicorn for liking beer and chicken wings, and it made me question myself, like, am I a unicorn too? And if so, where's my boyfriend?
Just kidding.
Other than that, it was absolutely incredible. The writing is amazing, especially for a debut. I am so impressed with Abby Jimenez. I'm really excited to read the next book, even though I know it'll be incredibly sad. There have been quite a bit of indie authors on my list, which makes me so happy. I love supporting indie authors. And so my next book, Bitter Heat by Mia Knight, is also an indie book. I first discovered her through her Crime Lord series, which is this amazing mafia series. I fell in love with her writing. She actually writes in third-person point of view, which is really interesting. I don't come across that a lot in indie romances. She writes books more on the dark and intense side. So this one is a second chance romance, which, if you know me, is my all-time favorite. So of course I had to read this book. It was absolutely amazing. Now this is a unicorn of a read because after the hero and heroine who were married, after they split up and divorced, the heroine actually moves on emotionally and physically. I almost never come across a second chance romance where during a separation the heroine, you know, sleeps with other men. The heroine Jasmine had her share of lovers, which she deserved because the hero basically dumps her. for no reason. And it's never explicitly said, but I do believe that the hero was celibate during their 7-year separation. But 7 years later, they're stuck together in a cabin during a snowstorm and forced to confront, you know, what happened 7 years ago. So clearly he wants her back, but what she wants is answers. And I love their book. This is the first book in their duet. I have no idea when the second book is releasing, which makes me super sad. If you can handle slight cliffhangers, read this book. Otherwise, wait for the series to finish. I have another beautifully written Greek mythology romance. It is a retelling of Cupid and Psyche, and that is Soul in Darkness by Wendy Higgins. It is so romantic. If you love Greek mythology, read this book. This is more of a straight romance than The Rose was. So this is basically a fantasy romance retelling. It's gorgeous, like I said, inside and out. I've been a longtime fan of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, one of my favorite paranormal romance series of all time, all about vampires. And of course, the latest book in the series, The Savior, is one of my favorite books of the year. This is also the first book, the first full-length book with a new publisher. So going into it, I was kind of wary. I wasn't sure if the essence of the story or the characters were changed, and thankfully they were not. I loved Murder's book. We've been waiting for Murder for quite a long time. He's been mentioned here and there throughout the series. His and Sarah's book gave me vibes of the earlier BDB books. She's a doctor, so this also reminded me of Lover Unbound, which is Vicious and Jane's book, one of my favorites of the series. This time the story wasn't too convoluted, like there weren't 10 million storylines put into one. So yeah, definitely read Murder's book. So we finally made it to the last book of my list, and that is The Girl He Used to Know by Tracey Garvis-Graves. This book is absolutely fantastic. The writing is gorgeous. The heroine is autistic. She doesn't really understand emotions or the emotions of others really well. This is a second chance romance with a boy that Annika, the heroine, met in college. They connected during chess club actually, which is super cute. The book alternates between two timelines, which is actually both set in the past. The book's present is 2001, and then it also goes back to the college days 10 years earlier in 1991. They're both super sweet and awkward, and I love seeing their second chance together. The thing that made this book for me though was the last 30 pages. My heart has never pounded so hard in my life. If you read this book, then you know Tracey Garvis-Graves messes with your emotions in the last 30 pages here. I do want to say that it was a little hard for me to get into this book at first. I felt a little disconnected with the characters, but I do think that was a little bit on purpose on the author's part because the heroine is very disconnected with the world. So I'm gonna take it as that, and that's it. Those were my favorite romance books of 2019 so far. If you read any of them or you want to read any, please let me know. If you stuck around so far, thank you so much. I didn't expect this video to go on so long. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye!